Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to another another crazy week. Okay. And you can see my mess. So I normally kind of raise myself, change the camera angle. But it has just been one of those crazy days. So hopefully you can hear me okay. As usual, I've got another microphone. I think this is like my fifth microphone. So hopefully this one will last a little bit longer. I don't know what happens. All of a sudden they just go crazy. Okay, so we've got quite a few things to go through. I'm going to go through a little bit more than what's kind of on the plan for today, just because quite a lot's happened. So first, like a teeny tiny little jaunt over to the old Bilderberg group. So we've just finished, I say we, I haven't had anything to do with it. The Bilderberg meeting was the 12th to the 15th of June in Stockholm. That was their 71st Bilderberg meeting to take place, and it was the 12th to the 15th of June. And it's really strange because you can literally go to their website and it tells you like who they are, like what their plans were, and actually there's a couple of interesting names on there. So if you literally go to bilderbergmeetings.org and then Bilderberg meetings, and you can find what the agenda was, and you can find out who went. So their agenda this time round, oh wait a minute, I can do that debrief Firkin thing, can't I? I say that. I was trying to get it onto OBS because I know how to use OBS more than this. This confuses me quite a lot. Okay, here we go. Hey, there we go. Okay, so press release. Topics for the discussion: transatlantic relationship, Ukraine. So expect to see something shift with regards to Ukraine. US economy. So that's interesting. They're talking about the US economy. Europe, Middle East, authoritarian axis. No idea what that's all about. Defense, innovation and resilience, AI deterrence and national security, proliferation, geopolitics of energy and critical minerals. And one of the names that I'm not going to talk about, so I've been through the list already. One of the names on there is all about kind of net zero. But then we have this really kind of exciting one: depopulation and migration. So they're not even hiding the fact that they are talking about depopulation. And when we hold depopulation in mind and just jump to another tab, look at that. I'm getting good at this now. So what we have here is Jeremy Cund, who is an MP. But remember, he was responsible for the NHS before, and he implemented a whole restructuring, which obviously then during the scamdemic, lots of people didn't get treated, didn't get looked after. So that was a very interesting name to find on there. The other person who is on here, who, for UK people, here we go. Streeting is Wes Streeting, so Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. So they expect lots of deaths coming our way, which we know that they're going to be doing anyway, because we're 2025, so war with China / Russia was for now, but also we've had the original estimation of when people would start to really feel the effects of the Rona jabs was 3 to 5 years after they've taken them. So expect that to come. So there's lots of, all the GBRs. So there's like Newbridge Advisory. There is people from the Atlantic. There's somebody here from, was somebody there, my apologies, from, Tony Blair's Institute. So that fucktard still got all of his fingers in the pie. But you can literally just go and find out, you can search by your country. We got some Ukrainians were there, so I wonder whether there was some kind of dodgy backroom deals. Loads of USA peeps, including like some military general leader type people. So I thought that was interesting that they were there. But you can go and have a nosy and see who is there and who is potentially. Oh, look, there we go. Ireland, Minister for Public Expenditure, Infrastructure Reform and Digitalisation. So they're really kind of, this was the other one. Pfizer CEO's there. President of World Economic Forum was there. Yeah. It's a bit fucking dodgy, to say the least. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to just quickly speak about. So obviously the G7 summit's on at the moment in Canada, and supposedly we've just made a giant $12 trillion deal with Canada, which, Mark Carney was the Bank of England dude for a while. So I mean, it's all just dodgy, right? Everything's dodgy. Okay, but so the G7 summit's on, and Trump landed a little bit ago there. I thought it was hilarious that the Arab South, no, what is it? Why can't I remember what country it is? Where Dubai is? Saudi Arabia. There we go. SA. I had in my head SA. Saudi Arabia was just like, nah, bravo, I ain't coming. He was invited. It was just like, dude, not interested. And obviously in like kind of bad news, we have Iran and Israel like popping off trying to kill each other. But some rumblings that Iran did get a little sneaky look at the old Epstein files before they launched their attack. So that will be interesting to see whether we actually get the information we all want, because now Iran's got it, but we'll see. We have some spy games, right? So this is kind of leading into Starmer's U-turn. So we just have oh shoot, let me do the thing. Oh nope. So this woman, Blaise Metriwelli, is now the first woman to head MI6. Now, hopefully, she's not got it because she's a woman, but actually, she was MI5 before. She was picked up in my guesstimation, based on my little bit of digging, while she was at Cambridge, which, interestingly, is where Wes Streeting went to university, and Wes Streeting was also the head of the National Students' Union, so just so dodgy as fuck. But so she her specialism is like Middle East, and she speaks Arabic. And while she was at MI, so before her role now as C, so she was supposedly Q, and Q isn't I'm not talking about Q with regards to the Chan board Q. I'm talking about being responsible for IT, tech, AI, and cyber intelligence in the UK. So my guess is that she was responsible for the attack, the cyber attack on Russia, and so because that was done successfully, she got the promotion out of it. So and again, Q is spyware, so that's interesting. Well, I think it's interesting that it's named Q, and Q is also now the kind of the part of the MI6 which is all about cyber stuff. So yeah, she's got an interesting background, and it's a bit dodgy. Let me just go to my notes. Go to my notes. I've got like notes on the computer and notes in my book. It just depends where I where I am while I'm writing stuff down. So this is why I wanted to check this. This is really strange, right? Considering she went to university, she was part of the women's rowing team that won. Is that correct? Let me just double check. I'm sure that was like 19. Yeah, women's boat race. So she was in the team that won the women's boat race in 1997, right? So she's got like quite a prominent public. She's a prominent public figure before she kind of was probably, you know, that's where they get them at university. So she was probably picked up there. Whether she was rowing while part of being a spy or not, I don't know. But they don't know her birth date, right? She was either born in 1977 or 1978. So how does she not have a definitive birth? Like, I know when I was born. Like, my parents know when, my mum knows when she gave birth to me, right? So how does somebody who went to university, who was part of the women's boat race winning team, not have a definitive year of birth? Like, I get that it'll be a bit like jaded when they like make fake what's the word? So they make fake ones, right? So I don't know whether she was just an analyst or whether she went out or what, you know, they don't tell us that much information, but it just seems really strange that she like doesn't have a like what how do they not know when she was born? Right. So this person is in charge of MI6 and nobody knows their birth date, like definitively. It's just weird. Like just batshit crazy. So so the other reason why she is probably being tasked, you know, remember we're talking about cyber intelligence and all of those sorts of stuff, is what's going on in you know, and this leads into the PsyOp that's really pissing me off right now, the NGO PsyOp, which did have me kind of kicking off on X. So I didn't take my deep breath. I didn't breathe deeply and let it wash over me. Instead, I dive full pelt because we have Big Brother Watch, right? Big Brother Watch, they're not good people. I keep telling you all these organizations, it's all bullshit. Now, Big Brother Watch, they have just launched a 38 degrees petition on rejecting digital ID, right? We just must reject digital ID because, you know, oh my God, like we can't be tracked and traced. And I'm not saying like we should be being tracked and traced, but I'm just saying, you know, they're saying we need to do this. We're going to do this petition. So I was calling them out on fucking X. I was like, okay, well then why aren't you using the government's permission? Because they never use the petition at Parliament one ever. They always do 38 degrees petitions or change.org petitions, and then when real humans go and use and create actual petitions on the government site and then it is debated in Parliament, they always say it's because of the petition that they did, right? So this is them fucking psyoping people. So the reason why I'm really angry is at the moment they're actually asking for information from people. Like this is what happens. So this is how we block shit that happens. Because all of the consultation information gets put together. Right, this is something the government has to do, right? So they are harnessing the potential of new digital forms of identification. So they're leading an inquiry. So with regards to what it is, whether it's visas, So there have been calls for the UK to adopt digital ID, with those arguing for its introduction, saying it would have benefits like improving citizens' access to services and supporting more effective enforcement of immigration rules. Now, remember, I told you there was an entire freaking TV show where they showed the entire plan with regards to implementing digital ID, and they did it by flooding illegals into UK. And the documentary, it wasn't. I mean, if you watch it now, it looks. You could be forgiven for thinking it's documentary, but it's a made up TV show. Supposedly, it was on the BBC, so and it kind of came out, I want to say 2005, 2006, right? So 20 years ago, then we had Tony Blair was trying to push digital ID, and he got told to jog, which is why, the fact that Tony Blair was at the Bilderbergs. So with regards to more effective enforcements of immigration rules, right, it's easy to kind of roll up the illegals if you know where they are, right? So they scarper all over the place. So we have to. So literally on that TV show, people were demanding digital ID so that the illegals could be rounded up, right? This is we had everybody demanding ID to vote, but not postal votes, right? So they were already doing it. So Home Office has done e-visas, digital driver's license. So this inquiry is going to examine what benefits the introduction of new digital forms of ID could bring for reducing crime and managing migration. So immigration it is what they will say it's for, right? So this is everybody who lives in the UK needs to do this, right? You need to do this. So basically, we have a call for evidence. So you basically, let me just drop this in the chat. Hey, Chris. Right, this is the call for evidence. I mean, if you're here on X, you probably won't see that because I don't think it posts on X. Can I post it on X? Can I? I'm going to have to do this now because otherwise I will forget. So apologies. Maybe I can just drop it in the comments. So don't panic, don't worry, don't stress out. You don't have to be that's last week's one. Don't want to stick on that one. Let's just pin this one now, and then I can stick it in the comments, and I won't be sticking comments in the wrong place. So you don't need to be fancy schmancy, you don't need a degree, you don't need any huge amounts of knowledge about any of this stuff. Just do all of this stuff from your own experiences, right? That's when it's powerful. And if you need help, use an AI, but just make sure you double check what they say, right? So what they want to know is how effectively is data relating to individuals currently being used and shared by the Home Office and its agencies? What potential benefits could the use of new forms of government-issued digital ID have for the government's ambitions to reduce crime and manage migration, right? So remember, they've just turned people who are patriotic into domestic terrorists. This is not about immigration. This is about tracking and rolling people up. They already have Minority Report based pre-crime units, right? So I went through that on one of the shows. They're already doing that. And FYI, they've been doing that for decades, but it just takes a really long time using a risk assessment form. Now they have AI doing it. So they are, downloading, watching your social media profiles, and people will hire you based on the AI telling them whether you're going to be a whistleblower or not, right? So prevent and investigate crime, particularly fraud, manage border entries and exits, support immigration enforcement, support labour market enforcement, administer asylum system. So, we've got that giant silent backlog, which is why they're going to be, they're just saying, hey, whoever's here, you're here. Would government issue digital identification need to be mandatory to release your benefits? So unless you have DigiID, you're not going to get your benefits. Unless you have your jab, you're not going to get your benefits. Unless you do what we say, you will starve to death. This is absolute authoritarian control. Hello, China. China Stan, we are here. So go and have a read and make sure, you know, get help if you want help, but usually you get like 500 to 1200 words, and you've got until the 21st of August 2025, so you've got a month or so to do it. So I absolutely haven't done mine yet, but when I do mine I will share it, but just as a heads up for those of you who are new here, I never do mine until like the last couple of days, right? And I always urge you not to do it until the last couple of days. The reason being, everybody did one of the COVID ones really early, and they read through lots of the information. So then they changed the questions, really re-released it, and then so they went from having like 60,000, maybe they had 60,000 people do it, and then only 30,000 kind of redid it, right? So they literally changed the goalpost. So wait until the end if you can. I mean, you can obviously answer all the questions now, and then, you know, because you can read them and you can come back to it and then just like hit play. So don't necessarily wait on me. I mean, you can, but I will be doing it like last minute. I will not do it early because, oh, sorry, I did the wrong one. So I will not be doing it early because that's when they figure out what's wrong in advance, right? We don't want them to figure out what's wrong, because then they say, oh, we've changed this thing, and they've never changed it for the good. But don't tell them. However, I would suggest maybe you start compiling little bits of information that you want to put in there. So potentially some of the things that I'm going to be talking about is the non-stop fucking leaks. And NHS, so we have the National Health Service getting all of their information taken. HMRC had all of their information taken. DWP gets attacked, right? We had Santander, 30 million customers had all of their information thrown on the black market thanks to, you know, Santander in 2024. We had the entire country was fucking shut down because Salesforce and Microsoft Office decided not to speak to each other. We've had Proton Mail all went down because, you know, those email accounts are being raided. So do I trust cyber? No, not in any way, shape or form. Not for anything that enables you to access money that you 100% deserve. People who don't deserve the benefits shouldn't be getting them. But people who cannot work, whether they have, you know, physical complications, mental health complications, maybe they've just worked so many fucking years and now they're retired. You know, people do deserve to be looked after if they are British citizens. Because God forbid something happen and I couldn't work. Oh my gosh, that would just be awful. Not necessarily the money thing, but I think I'd just go, I'd go bonkers if I couldn't work. Okay. So that's the kind of, so the PsyOps, right? So if you ever see like an organization like Big Brother Watch and all of those like pushing something, right? They will be pushing something because it's being talked about. Make sure you go to parliament.uk and then go and find out what it was there. So I just want to say, like, shout out to Shirley who found this, because she just happened to be on my X while I was late night bitching. So thanks, Shirley, for kind of throwing that there. And if you are on X, by the way, I set up a list. Let me just show this. Oh, maybe I can share that as well. Right, okay, let me share this. So I literally tracked down as many of the government agencies on Twitter that I could find. I mean, I keep calling it Twitter, I'm sorry. So you can always come here and see what they're saying. Right, so we've got the military on here, we've got the House of Commons on here, we've got the Treasury, all all of these fucktards. So here we go. Look, there's another inquiry. This one's into small businesses. This is basically how they can fuck you, probably. This plonker. He's not on the list, right? It's because the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office reposted that absolute plonker. So you can come here. So I'm going to throw that into Twitter as well. The thread. Let me just do this. But now I need to go back to where am I? Where am I? This is list thread. I keep 2 secs. If you're maybe you didn't know you could do that, but if you're joining me from not in the UK, like it's handy to kind of have that for your own country. Okay, let me just I'll keep that open because otherwise I'll forget to do it. Right. I always have just like loads of tabs open that just stay open and then remember to do stuff. Okay, so let's just stay. So let's kind of move now on to. We'll do the Tate twists, and then we'll jump into Starmer, and then there's some more kind of spy games. I've actually got the Casey report up, and we're going to go into what they have supposedly agreed they're going to do. So first off, so I was watching. I've lost you. Let me. I was watching Andrew Gold chatting to somebody, the guy who does Pie, the comedian. Jonathan Pie is the kind of the person he pretends to be, right? So I mean, he's quite funny. I used to watch him on Facebook, except I stopped watching with the COVID stuff because I was like, I'm not giving my time to anybody who doesn't realize this is bullshit. Oh shit, I've just thrown water everywhere. That's what happens when I try and drink stuff. Okay, so darn it, 2 secs because I've literally thrown it everywhere. So, and what happened was Andrew Gold kind of just said something like he was asking, the guy who plays Jonathan Pie brought up he'd seen that he'd had Katie Hopkins on and how she was kind of like psychotic and not letting him ask any questions. She kept saying, you need to ask difficult questions, and every time he asked a difficult question, she shut him down, right? But I've mentioned her kind of like Freudian Tate slip, right, already. Well, he was chatting to the guy who plays Jonathan. It's not Jonathan Pie. I don't know. The guy who plays Pie. Anyway. And he just randomly said, and I didn't know this. And actually, if you try and dig, you can't find this out, right? So Andrew Gold has interviewed Tommy Robinson. So this is probably how he knows. So Tommy Robinson, Andrew Tate, and Stacey Dooley all grew up in Luton. Right. So Luton stats, right? Because it's not a big place for those of you who are in the UK and don't know where Luton is, or it's not far from me. But also, if you're not anywhere near the UK, then Luton's not going to make anything to you, right? So it's not like big place. And these are 3 individuals with kind of like high profile. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's just very unusual, right? So as of the 2021 census, there were 225,261 people, right? And that's a 20%, an 11% increase. So 22,000 rocked up extra in the last 10 years. That's a lot. That's a lot. So the national average was like 6%, right? So 11% increase in Luton. And I would say Telford has had very similar, like huge amounts of increase because they just built loads of fucking houses and started importing people. They have a 58 54.8% non-white population. 14% are Pakistani, 6% are Bangladeshi. It's one of the 4 places in the UK outside of London which has a higher non-white population than white population. And that's increased quite rapidly in the last decade or so, compared to when Tommy, Stacey, and Andrew Tate, who all knew each other growing up, were kind of growing up, right? So it's the last 25, 30 years where things have kind of taken a huge turn. So on the 2011 census, 24% were Muslim and 47% were Christian. Then we have a flip, right? So right now, or 2021 census, 32% Muslim and 37% Christian, right? So, and that's not to say the Christians have moved out. That just means like a hell of a lot of Muslims have moved in or been moved in, right? 22,000 extra people. And then the Muslim population went from 24% to 32%, right? So the Christian population went down by 10% and the Muslim population went up by 10%. And 22,000 is around 10% of 220,000, right? So we can kind of really, hey, Mark. So we can really kind of see what happened is they went, we're just going to throw even more. Now, what's really interesting is that if you ask an AI and you try and hunt for what's the link between Andrew Tate, Stacey Dooley, and Tommy Robinson, is just the fact they're all far right, right? There's no mention of them all actually growing up together and knowing each other, right, at all. So, and you all know how I feel about TR, right? So the other thing that is really interesting when you kind of dig into obviously Tate became a Muslim, right? Became a Muslim because of his disgusting views about women. I mean, that's what happens, right? So he, with regards to who actually likes this fucktard, 41% of the black population are favourable to Tate. 31% of the Asian population are and when I say Asian, and it's not, it annoys me that we use Asian because Asia is a really big place, right? So we have, China's in Asia. Like, I wouldn't say 31% of Chinese people favor Andrew Tate, right? So they use the word and they say black for, a skin color. They say white for a skin color, and then they lump an entire continent with completely different beliefs, ideologies, all together, right? To cover up for a specific ethnic group. Right. So 31% of the entire continent of Asia, right? That's what they're saying. Have an affinity. It's only 15% of the white population, right? So to say that Andrew Tate is far right, I think is hilarious because, obviously it's all the white people who are far right. But the white people really don't like him because he's a cunt. And this is my podcast, so I can say that, and I don't care. So this is going to lead us on to we're going to get to, I promise you, we're going to get to Starmer. We're just going to do a little bit of a detour, teeny tiny extra detour with regards to the GCHQ arrest, right? Arrest and conviction. So Hassan Arshad, who's a 25-year-old former Manchester University, right, computer science student from Rochdale. So Rochdale, grooming, huge grooming. Oh, and with regards to Luton, it's not been named. It's not been named as one of the big places where grooming happens, but obviously Tommy said he got into it because his cousin was groomed. That's where he met the Sikh leader. And if you watch the Sikh leader interview on Andrew Gold, the way that he says that Tommy just randomly appeared makes me believe this. Anyway. So bearing in mind, 14% of the population of Luton is Pakistani, and there is no like grooming scandal in Luton. Also, it's very close to Telford, and I say very close, maybe about, no, it's not Luton. I'm thinking of Luton's London. My apologies. It's not. I mean, England's tiny. I was thinking of somewhere other L, but it's not far. Luton to Telford. It's just on the M6, right? And they do. So the grooming scandals are heavily linked to. So 5 ways to travel. Oh yeah, no, it isn't. Yeah, like an hour and a half, right? So it's not far, because it's outside of London. So for those of you who don't live in the UK, you can literally go from one end to the other, like including like England through to the end of Scotland in like a day if you drive nonstop. And one guy did it in like 14 hours, and then he got done for speeding, because you can only do it when you speed, right? So it's not on the globe map things. England and Scotland looks huge. Like you can fit the British Isles into, I'm sure it was like into Florida like 50 times or something. Like it's like minuscule. Anyway, so Luton, huge population of, but doesn't have a grooming scandal, right? So let's just say that's all bullshit. Okay, so let's jump on to, I mean, not jump onto, but let's talk about Hassan Arshad. So he's 25-year-old former Manchester University computer science student, so tapped at university. He was jailed for 7.5 years in only a few days ago, for downloading top secret data from GCHQ secure systems and taking it home. So GCHQ is another spy agency in the UK. So endangered national security, risking the exposure of 17 colleagues. So where this gets intriguing is his background and who he is. So his dad is a town councillor in the area where there's a huge grooming scandal, right? And there's huge cover-ups. They stopped it. They said, you know, you can't say that because you're just being fucking racist. Like, this is going on there. So supposedly he did an internship, then he went back for another year, and he was granted developed vetting, which is the highest level of security clearance. So we gave an intern top secret clearance, right? So he was able to get top secret clearance as an intern. Like, that is fucking retarded. Like, absolute batshit crazy that somebody who's doing an internship, so not like an actual proper staff member, right? This guy's just doing an internship. We're like, oh yeah, like, here you go, access anything you want. Why the fuck not? So he was involved in working on tools and techniques to gather intelligence on threats to the UK from hostile states or territories, right? I'm going to say we had a hostile individual who was responsible for developing tools and techniques to gather intelligence, right? So, I mean, I like, what kind of background did they do on this guy, right? And you're going to ask that in 2 seconds, because when they arrested him for the spy stuff, right? When they arrested him for the breach of the just security, which he could have got 100 years in prison for, right? So he got 7.5 years, right? So just the spy shit alone, he could have got 100 years in prison. When they arrested him and they got his tech, they then found it full of category A child abuse stuff, right? So he had 40 category A and 4 category B indecent images of children, right? and they were made between the 7th and the 23rd, 2022, right? So it doesn't say whether he made them. Oh, yeah, here we go. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of making indecent photographs of a child in January 23, right? So he potentially made category A images, right? So I'm just going to remind everybody what category A is. Actually, let's go and find out official, right? So because this is not like there's somebody, little child wearing their knickers. This is the 666 stuff. Category A, child images, UK. I don't want it. Sentencing. There we go. That's a dodgy thing to put on your computer, isn't it? I wasn't looking. I'm not searching for it. I'm searching the wrong thing. Okay, here we go. Right. And I mean, I've read this loads of times, but I'm going to, again, this is important. This is why I get very frustrated by the word grooming, right? Grooming a gang just alludes to the pattern of behavior. It doesn't allude to the torture, the murder, the rape, the absolute horror that these predominantly girls go through, predominantly white girls go through, right? So a child is anybody under 18 by law, right? So bearing in mind a child is anybody under 18 by law. And they've got what does to make mean, to possession, available offences. Okay, here we go. Come on, you tell me. Where are you going to say? Maybe this is the wrong page. It literally lists out exactly what it is. Jurisdiction. Maybe we're going to have to go to... Oh, here we go. Oh, I'm not allowed to see that. Look at this. I'm not allowed to see the web page that tells us what it is. Oh, I'm going to have to just do it from memory then. Okay, so it's rape, torture, and I mean like rape with human parts, with non-human parts. So think about things like broom handles, knives, like the stuff they insert into girls' inside bits is horrific. So multiple individuals abusing and raping children at the same time. Think about children being forced to do horrific things to other children. Think about varying types of animals being forced to do things to children, and or children being forced to do things to animals. These include, horrific torture while it's going on, and I would, supposedly snuff doesn't happen, right? But there will be snuff shit in there as well, right? This is not when they say category A, they don't tell people what oh, I've been cut off the internet. Well, that's interesting. Is it good? Because somebody tell me whether you can still see me. I've just had a message saying that we're trying to reconnect you to the internet. That's annoying. And there's a huge delay because there's always a huge delay. Right, well, I'm going to kind of carry on and hopefully it's working. Fingers crossed. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Because I was like, I can't see anything. Okay, that's cool. I literally just got a message saying no, and then now it says you can't post messages, so I can't send like a please help, can you see me? Okay, so when we talk about category A, okay, guys, it's not just like a kid sat there. This is like horrific stuff, and he had 40 of those. He also had for category B. So category B is more abuse and assault rather than full penetration, right? So that will be and then category C is just naked, right? So category C is the one where it's just like somebody's got their kid in a bath and they've taken a cute photo of the kid. If you stick it on the internet, I mean, why would you? But people are retards. So you could, people have that, right? So 40 category A, right? And he is the son of a counselor in a town with a huge grooming scandal, and people aren't talking about that side of it, right? At all. I mean, they kind of gloss over the fact that he was arrested for these. Everybody's only focused on the fact that he and the counselor, by the way, the dad, he's not been named, right? So I want the NCA to investigate the dad, because people don't wake up one day and be like, let's just go and do some horrific things to children and or look for horrific things to children, right? So, but it's interesting that he was working on data intelligence based gathering stuff, right? So think Epstein. So did he become desensitized? I mean, it's would be fast desensitization if it was like 12 months, right? But this is why, this is what people don't talk about when you get lots of police officers who end up being horrific individuals. It's chances are they've had to so this, okay, so let's go to this one. So there's 44 photos they found. That's it. They haven't mentioned videos or anything else. So 44. Somebody has to look at each of those, right? And they have to look at them in minute detail to see whether they can find where it happened, see whether they can identify the victim, see where they will have to understand the meta information to see whether they can track it back. Maybe they have to search to find other images to see from the same place. Maybe there's other children, right? So even just looking at 40 photos of a child being horrifically abused, at some point you are going to be desensitized to it, right? And so this is what happened. People don't talk about this. It drives me crackers. So I've seen, and I do not want anybody to search for it, right? Back before the internet was as censored as it is now, I saw stuff that I saw the fuzzle drip stuff, and it still haunts me. Right? It still haunts me. I accidentally saw some woman being stoned to death, right? And when I realized what was going on, I didn't turn it off because it didn't happen to me. I wanted to honor what that lady went through, right? Which happened in Pakistan, by the way, guys. So, and she was stoned to death because she had a Bible, right? So she was stoned to death because she was a Christian, and the police tried to save her, and the entire mob of Muslim men stormed the police station. The police got her onto the roof, and then they all got onto the roof. She jumped for her life, and she ran away, and then they got her and they stoned her, and then they set fire to her, right? So that's the mentality of individuals who we think come to the country, and all of a sudden, they're all eating marmalade sandwiches, reading Paddington Bear to their kids. They're not, right? It's not a language issue. It is an entire cultural difference. If you believe somebody should be stoned to death for being a Christian and then you move to a Christian country, is anybody surprised by the fact that they keep setting fire to the churches? Right? I can't. Right. So Starmer's had to U-turn again. So I'm not again. Turn. Okay, so you have to ask why now? And yes, the Casey report is out. And they got ahead of it by saying, we're going to do it, right? Because when it's reported in a year's time, they won't say we did it on the eve of the report. But it's also happening at the exact same time that Israel and Iran are trying to kill each other. Iran being a very big Muslim country. Like the timing is important, right? Because they want the war to go from Cold War, the Cold Civil War, they want it to go hot. Right. And sorry. So I watched another one of Andrew Gold's. So basically, if you kind of doing the dishes and one tips over, you get another one, right? And I'm very grateful I watched this one actually. There's the few I've kind of gone, I'm turning this one off. But it was with a guy called Professor David Betts. And it's interesting because he is a Civil War professor at King's College in London. And he's been talking about this for a while. But he says that Civil War will happen in the next 5 years. So I would like to correct him. It's already been happening, right? And some of the things that he lists as what evidence of a civil war are already happening. So we already have the little white boys as the most deprived population in the UK with regards to education and intelligence and being looked after, right? And we've known that that's been happening for 25 years. They've had positive discrimination. You are not allowed to fly your own flag because then some fucking MP will say you're a racist. Right, we are now being called domestic terrorists. So it's already happening, but it's happening by stealth. And we have huge swathes of Muslim population in the civil service, and we know that because we just had the court case of a Christian woman fleeing a country under threat of life, and her asylum was turned down by a Muslim member of the civil service, right, who said that she'd made it up. That of course she wasn't a threat, bearing in mind I literally just told you they stone people to death in certain countries for being Christian, right? And if you haven't been following on what's been going on in Nigeria, where Christians are being slaughtered routinely in their hundreds and thousands every single week, and I only started tracking it in 2020. I would put a conservative estimate of over 102, maybe 100 to 200,000 Christians have been slaughtered in Nigeria. I mean, yeah, because some days it's literally like 1,200, an entire village was wiped out. I don't know how many people live in Nigeria. Maybe 100. I mean, maths is bad. Maybe 100,000. It's been 4 years and I wasn't doing it, tracking it beforehand. A lot of people, right? And nobody talks about that. Like, where's Amnesty International? Where's the UN, right? Anyway, this dude is saying that there will be 2 reasons why civil war pops off in his terminology, but I'm going to say why it goes from cold to hot. So the first one, and it is up there, is immigration, uncontrolled immigration. And there was a report in 2011 that literally said uncontrolled immigration will lead to civil war. Basically, it will lead to civil unrest. And so they just kind of like did it anyway, right? That was the plan, right? They just wanted to see how effective it was. They wanted to kind of iron out the kinks. My apologies for bashing that thing. Anyway, so he was saying the other one will be the peasant revolt. And I've been talking about the peasant revolt for 4 years as well. So I've been talking about both of those things. 5 years, because it's 2025. Oh my God, 5 years. And you look at England's history, and I'm going to specifically talk about England because this is where there have been peasant revolts, and this is what they're trying to do: rile everybody up, get the civil war, get the populace who have been beaten down. You can't have your benefits. You're going to have to starve to death. You're going to have to freeze to death. All of these foreign illegal men, who are men, who are rocking up. We know they're men because, amazing people like Active Patriot are like recording them come, like, and he went to court to prove that it was okay for him to do it. They kept trying to put him in prison for what he was doing. And I think there's the little guy, I can't remember what his name is. There's lots of people who've been recording it day in, day out, and there aren't women and children, right? And if you are fleeing a war-torn country, you don't leave the women and children there, right? It's just stupid. So what was really interesting was that he was talking about the 2011 London riots. And that was like way before I started to really look into any of this stuff. So it didn't. But what was really interesting was he said there was only like 2,000 to 3,000 people who ended up shutting London down for a couple of years. And I remember it. I was working in Leicester? I think I was working in Leicester because it wasn't just London. It kind of like went everywhere. So yeah, I was working in Leicester. That was interesting. And where I was working, so I was a store manager of a fast fashion retailer, and in a shopping center, and the shopping center got evacuated. Like, we had security getting us off the premise to keep us safe. And actually that day I was going to a train station. I was coming home after work, and as I was getting to the train station, about half an hour later, like, things went insane in Leicester. So I was quite glad I was on the train on the way to Telford. But so there was only 2,000 to 3,000 people who shut down London, right? The police couldn't contain that. And out of those 2,000 to 3,000, there was only 1% who were violent, right? So 200 to 300 people who were violent. And the reason why I wanted to really mention this is because quite a number of years ago, Tor mentioned The Purge, and she would never let Phoebe watch it because it would come true, right? She's like, you can't watch that because it's going to be true one day. And so it kind of occurred to me that The Purge that Tori's talking about may very well be what happens as a result of the continued civil disobedience and threat, a civil war, right? Because what happens in The Purge is obviously people are getting dragged out of their home and they're getting murdered, right? And so it will automatically descend to colors the most obvious difference. Okay, so this is why it's really easy to hate somebody who is dressed different. So you've got color and you've got looking different, right? So you don't know. I mean, I could be any religion, right? I could be born anywhere. But just by looking at me, you wouldn't know necessarily, because I could dye my hair. I don't, but I could be dyeing my hair. I could, you wouldn't know by looking at me where I'd come from. However, by the clothes that I wear, it's very obvious where I come from, or perhaps my religious affiliation, right? So it's going to very quickly go from the being oppressed by the elite into purging, right? I worry because being a Muslim doesn't automatically make you a groomer or a rapist, right? At all. Definitely not. I've got Muslim friends, right? And they are definitely not rapists. And they have spoken out against so very few people speak out against it. And actually one of my friends escaped a very violent country and a quite violent relationship, which was okay because she was the female, right? And she actually she had to leave, she left her son behind in order to save her own life, right, to come to the UK. So don't automatically assume because somebody's Muslim they're evil. But we also have to remember one of the main reasons why a huge swathes of the Muslim community don't speak out is because if you look at what happens to Muslims who speak out in predominantly Muslim countries, is they are brutalized in the exact same way as somebody who's a Christian, right? So the people who are brutalized, I would say worse, are those who convert, right? Who go from Muslim to Christian or from Muslim to Hindu, who convert, right? So and if you are living in a predominantly Muslim area, then they behead, right? They are quite happy to murder people. So there's going to be so much death. People are going to, and when bloodlust kicks in, and anybody who's been harmed will have a lower threshold of tolerance to causing harm, especially if somebody has not dealt with their trauma. It is so easy to hurt somebody else when you have shut off your empathy, and you will have and this is what I'm talking from both personal and professional experience. When you have experienced trauma and you haven't dealt with it, is you won't be empathetic because you are overwhelmed by your own feelings of what's happened, right? So it's very easy for you to want vengeance and want justice, right? So Professor David Betts estimates anywhere from about 22,000 to 200,000 casualties, like deaths. And they need it to happen. So he says in 5 years, they need it to happen like a lot sooner. And we can see the shit ramping up, right? So one of the reasons I believe the Casey report came out now, the timing is to coincide with the Iran-Israel thing, is to coincide with the Gaza stuff, is to coincide with everything else because they need it now, right? Because they're not bothered about the victims. They've never been bothered about the victims, but they are bothered about the perpetrator. And you will perhaps see what I mean when I go into the 12 different points, right? So tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. UK time, Baroness Casey is being questioned on her findings on Parliament TV. So you can just go to parliamentlive.tv and watch it from 10:30. I tend not to watch it because it's quite annoying and frustrating. So what I tend to do is I tend to wait until it's finished, and then I go to Hansard and get the transcript, right? I get to this and then you can skip the will my right, addressing my right honourable friend and all that kind of like puppeteer bullshit that they do. It's just like there's like 90% fluff. Okay. So I've got the recommendations open. So her report is 200 pages. So it came out today. So it came out today or yesterday. I haven't read it. So we're going to go through the 12 recommendations together. Okay, so we have recommendation number 1. And so quick heads up, Starmer has said that they accept all 12 and will implement all 12, right? So this is, I mean, they can slow walk everything, But also, FYI, with regards to the civil service, there were 300 civil service members who said that they were like up in arms over the fact that we were still funding Israel, weaponry, and they were supposedly told, well, then leave, right? So they are really ramping stuff up with regards to race, intercultural tensions. So recommendation number 1, the law in England and Wales should be changed so adults who intentionally penetrate the vagina, anus or mouth of a child under 16 receive mandatory charges of rape, because at the moment they do not get rape charges. They're not charged with rape, they are charged with assault, if they're charged at all, right? But this is how so many of them get let off. Because and I've talked about this before, there is the 13 to 16-year-old grey area. That's why they specifically target children of over 13, right? And by the time they hit 16, they've discarded them. So they used, the law was changed to create this grey area between 13 and 16 where you are unlikely to be charged for raping a child, because they said that you could consent. And a lot of that happened after the Jamie Bulger killings, and I've mentioned this before, because they lowered the age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 10, right? And if you can be charged for murder, if you have responsibility for committing murder, understanding what that means at the age of 10, of course you can then consent to sex, right? And then again, this is where Pi came in, and Pi were trying to lower the age of sexual consent to 10. So that's why the Jamie Bulger stuff is so important with regards to what they were trying to do. And so now she's saying it's got to go back. So fuck that loophole. It needs to be 16. So they also suggest a Romeo and Juliet clause, so that you've got teenagers together. You don't have like 2 14-year-olds. I mean, they shouldn't be but if they are, they're two consenting. But I would be really careful with this, because actually there's a huge increase in teen on teen rape, particularly young boy gang raping girls, teenagers gang raping girls. So that's something that is on the increase. And so I think that even this whole Romeo and Juliet clause, we have to be careful, right? Because they are, and this is to do with the fact that with porn industry, showing lots of women getting it's enjoying sex with multiple people at the same time. And if you hadn't seen that supposed woman who had like 1,000 men or whatever it was transitioned from a guy at 13, so it's not a woman anyway. But that kind of stuff has sensationalized it, and this is why in secondary schools they have to teach people about consent, and they do it with tea, like cups of tea, right? Because that's like the most British thing in the world, is to teach people about consent using cups of tea. So basically, if you have a cup of tea and you ask somebody, do you want a cup of tea? And they say no, you're not going to force them to drink the cup of tea, right? That's how they had to teach young boys that if a girl says no, it means no. Right? It's not that she just wants it rough. It means she does not want to do it. Okay. So second, we need a vigorous approach to righting the wrongs of the past, using known vulnerability factors to identify and bring perpetrators of these terrible offences to justice, holding agencies to account for any part they played in allowing these crimes to go undetected and unpunished in the past, and delivering justice for more victims, right? So that plays right into the fact that councils, police, court systems, all of these have covered it up. And, who are the little white girls being traffic too down the county lines. People want to know who Epstein and Ghislaine were trafficking to, but people keep forgetting that these girls were trafficked, not only trafficked to other grooming, we call them other Pakistani rape gangs. They were being trafficked to police. They were being trafficked to council members, members of social services, to members, head teachers. We saw head teachers and deputy heads being rolled up in 2020, 2021. So recommendation number 2, a national police operation and national inquiry coordinating a series of targeted investigations should be launched into child exploitation in England and Wales. So for those of you outside the UK, England and Wales is a separate kind of jurisdiction to Scotland. However, what happens in England does end up being filtered out into both Scotland and Northern Ireland, but they usually kind of tweak to make sure that they are in line with their laws, right? So it's a trade agreement that we have, and we have different levels of trade and kind of like agreement, but it's not that it won't cover Scotland and Northern Ireland. It will. Will kind of go down to the devolved nations, as they call them. So National Crime Agency is who they want to kind of deal with it. The National Police Council, but bearing in mind the National Police Chiefs Council, one of the chiefs, one of the chiefs has just been rolled up and arrested. One of them refused to take a drug test twice, so he's now resigned. But actually, one of the police chiefs has been done for being a child abuser, right? So but it says it's going to be overseen by the NCA. Okay, so the NCA is taking charge. For those of you outside the UK, NCA is kind of like our FBI, but it's not really, because it also does stuff with Interpol. So it does stuff inside the country and outside the country. But like the FBI, they have to be invited in. So you can't just ring and contact them, because I found that out the hard way. But the NCA have been doing this already for the last 5-6 years or so, and all of the kind of delayed arrests and people going to prison are from them. So they've already been talking to the victims, rolling people up, right? So this is now going to give them complete control whether a police agency invites them in or not, right? Because that's what they haven't had before. They have to be invited in. So now they don't. And they were only invited into ones that already had inquiries, right? Already had people being arrested, right? So they took over the other cases, and now they will have carte blanche to go everywhere. Having scoped the operation at a national level, every police force in England and Wales should review records to identify cases of child sexual exploitation that have not been acted on. So they need to review any case that has been reported that hasn't been prosecuted in the last 10 years. So it's a shame they're not going to go further back, but they do. The perpetrators range from kind of late teens right up until they're kind of before they're dying, right? So it's still going to capture people from 20-30 years ago, because unless they're dead, they're still at it. And that's some of the sick things you find out when you look at what these girls have been through. So a review of police and children's services records to identify children who've been at risk or harmed by sexual exploitation over the last 10 years, following the good practice approach of the Smith algorithm, which West Yorkshire used. It's going to identify children in care, children with repeated episodes of going missing, and children who come to the attention of the police or children's services being involved in or at risk of sexual abuse. Access to children's services records will require an agreement of mandatory sharing of information to avoid legal delays. So she's basically saying, no. You are not waiting for consent forms. You are not slowing things down. You are not waiting for warrants. As of implementation, the National Crime Agency gets access to all of this information. It's tough shit. So expect lots of random fires. across social services, across schools, across all of these places where they've got these records, right? Just like what's happened in Telford, you know, those 500,000 documents that disappeared 24 hours before they were due to be handed over due to the waste paper fire in the brand new Southwater building where it's no smoking. But we don't talk about that shit, right? So gonna use Operation Stovewood and elsewhere to identify children. Crown Court should play their part in this exercise. Okay, so this is really important. Like I said, I've not read this, so we're doing it together. So Court, and it is not going to be kicked down to magistrates. They have to be done at Crown Court. So to stop perpetrators evading justice, right? Because the amount of people. This is why we've had a lot of the times when we've tried to go to the Attorney General and say this is a lenient sentence, it's been a magistrate's court of which he doesn't have jurisdiction over, and then also he's just been ignoring them, right? Because that came out recently. He was just ignoring them, refusing to do it, and his team were refusing to investigate. So how is he still in post? Okay, so step number 2, national inquiry coordinating a series of targeted local investigations. So an independent commission which has full statutory powers, right? They've never had statutory powers before. So they're going to have submissions from victims and witnesses. And should review cases of failures or obstruction by statutory services. So Oldham, you're fucked, mate. All of you councillors in Oldham who keep saying no, keep refusing, keep saying no, you guys are about to feel some heat. Oh, and Telford with the pretend one we had. There'll need to be a process to identify instances and allegations of statutory agencies' failures. We recommend the government develops a list of criteria to determine the types and extent of failures, which should be used to assess the triggering of a hearing. Now, what's really interesting, we do have a lawyer as our PM, so he should be able to come up with a legal list of things that would equate to needing to be investigated. So I don't see why he shouldn't be able to be good at this, especially as he was head of the CPS when Operation Chalice and all of those things were happening. They're going to have set strict timescales. They're going to have a single appointed legal team, and I don't agree with that. I think it should be open source. I think that it should be people like it should be volunteer people. You know, should be able to. I mean, we've got like the people have got the information, right? This is where the time and the legal team, and I get they want a time scale because they don't want it to be delayed. So unless they've got good AI on their hands, which they've been using for a long time, right? It's the whole Minority Report. But here we go. So this is exciting. Compelling witnesses where they refuse to cooperate. I do hope you're going to be calling Starmer as head of the CPS as a witness. So records will be required. Local authorities, police forces, and other relevant agencies should be required not to destroy any relevant records. Right, so you're going to send out a letter saying, please don't destroy any records. Do you know what they should have done? They should have taken all the information before they released this report. I know that the NCA's got lots of information already, so good luck. Good luck burning it all. So there should be a charter for victims about what they should reasonably expect from the process as they're once again asked to relive their experiences. And this is key, right? The same people who have been speaking over and over and over and over again. And every time you repeat something, you make the trauma stronger if you haven't dealt with it, right? So these victims are re-victimizing themselves to get justice. So pray for the victims, right? Give them strength. Local investigations could commence sooner in areas where the Independent Commission and Home Office agree that sufficient evidence already exists. Ooh, maybe Luton. I mean, Why not? Stacey Dooley was talking about it in 2013, I think. Tommy Robinson's come from there, and he says it's going on. So recommendation number 3, review the criminal convictions of victims of child sexual exploitation. Quash any convictions where government finds victims were criminalized instead of protected. And this kind of leads into, I'm pretty sure Sammy was trying to get Sammy's law, or maybe that's in, I'm not sure, maybe this is a separate thing, where you commit a crime, or maybe this is slightly different. So where you commit a crime under, coercion because you're being kind of groomed, because that's what they used to do, is they used to get the victims to go and, be the person who was doing the drug running, being the person who was, taking the money for the arms dealing, so they had clean hands. I did watch Grooming Scan, that Channel 4 whitewash documentary. One of those individuals she went to prison for a crime, so she should be getting her slate wiped clean. 100% clear about what information they collect about people who commit offences in the country and those they victimise. They need to revise and improve the collection of ethnicity and nationality data of both suspects and victims for all sexual abuse and exploitation cases. So for the first time, they're going to be forced to take it properly rather than what do you identify as, right? So then we can get real data, real statistics. But again, timing. Why are they pushing this all now? Recommendation 4, the government should make mandatory the collection of ethnicity and nationality data for all suspects in child sexual abuse and criminal exploitation cases, and work with the police to improve the collection of ethnicity data for victims. Police should be held to account for its performance in collecting the data, including through the new police framework. So police will get downgraded if they aren't doing it properly. So there's going to be no ifs, no buts, right? You do this. And so with regards to grading, will become money, right? Budgets. And whether they have got somebody looking after them, whether they're left alone. Police forces and local authority must collect data on all known or suspected child sexual exploitation, and child exploitation by networks should be separated from other data sets, including data on child sexual abuse, and be disaggregated by the sex, ethnicity, and disability of both the victim and perpetrator. Like, this is huge. For the first time, they are going to have to start collecting proper data, right? So this Baroness Casey must be a Nazi, right? She must be a far right, because everybody forgets Nazis is National Socialist and they're left. Anyway, she must be a far right Nazi for demanding accurate reporting of data and information. Have to assure effective sharing of information regarding children and child abuse cases to prevent harm to children. Should trump all data protection issues. So she's saying should, though. This isn't a must, and it's so this is only the kind of recommendation. But when they put the legislation out, we'll have to pay attention to the musts and the shoulds, right? That's very different. Must means it's statutory responsibility and you can go to prison for not doing it. Should means you have grey area wiggle room. We should also ensure that safeguarding agencies, police, local authorities, schools, and health services are using information on intelligence smartly, making the best use of technology to stay ahead of criminals, that police forces are applying the best operational approaches to preventing, disrupting, and prosecuting groups committing child sexual exploitation, that the local authorities are fully focused on child exploitation. So what they really should be doing is speaking to National Rail. So National Rail have done huge amounts with regards to county lines, and they are what is specifically kind of talked about with regards to drug smuggling across county lines. So, I live in a town, we've got a borough, and then we've got counties. So somebody going from Staffordshire County into Shropshire County, and they use the train lines, right? So, I mean, I live like 5 minutes away from Oakengates, which is a train station, which is in Delford. And 5-minute walk from the train station is the underpass where they were handing children off. And I know that explicitly was happening in 2020 because I reported it to the police in Delford, because on images, so drawings on the underpass were the same drawings. The FBI released, this means little girl wanted and this means little boy wanted, right? So they were being and just so you know, the underpass connects Oakengates to Hadley. Hadley is where the chip shop was, the kebab shop, which is where the girls were being groomed in and out of. So literally a stone's throw. And there's also Wellington train station the other way. So they know these things. So again, what's quite nice about this is talking about, I'm pretty sure she said at the beginning, 4,000 identified children in 2023. So she is saying it's not old news. Like, this is really important as well. She's saying it's not old news. So how they're safeguarding and broader powers can be used, but they need to speak to National Rail, because National Rail has got a hell of a lot of information, and they've been taking the information properly, and they've stopped and disrupted a lot of the county line stuff, working with the police. So that's but didn't we just nationalize all the rail industry? Yeah. Oh, yes, we did. Anyway, recommendation 5, mandatory. So they've already got. I mean, unless there's been a fire at National Rail, they've already got a lot of this information. Mandatory sharing of information should be enforced between all statutory safeguarding partners in cases of child sexual abuse and exploitation. Compliance should be monitored by the inspectorates and overseen by the proposed Child Protection Authority. So the new duty to share information for the purposes of safeguarding. I mean, we need to find out who this Child Protection Authority comes under. If it's a government agency, which is kind of like the, just a random group of MPs, I don't have much faith in this. But maybe she kind of sets out who the Child Protection Authority is in the document I have to hand. So the new duty to share information for the purposes of safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children proposed in the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill needs to be assessed against the extent to which it will prevent agencies from not sharing information. So she's basically calling out the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. And actually that Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill will not benefit children in any way, shape or form. It is a Trojan horse for horrific stuff to happen and shit to go wrong. Recommendation 6, the Department for Education should move swiftly to introduce unique reference numbers for children to improve opportunities for agencies to better share their information about children at risk of sexual abuse. And she's suggesting this to avoid the whole, we haven't got parental consent, we haven't got consent, right? We need to, so what they all have is their own coding. So a school may code their child with first name, first initial, last initial, class number, and then the police have got them under their specific coding. And so you're having to decode, you have to do cryptology to figure out which child is child. So she's suggesting a uniform ID number for this child that is used by all agencies, which will enable it to be tracked and not get lost, go missing, get forgotten about. Recommendation 7, and all schools do truancy reporting online, right? So they will have instant truancy information. So councils will purposely ignore some children because they don't want to deal with them. And those children also happen to be the children who are in care, because those children are the children who are being trafficked, right? So all of this kind of works together. And for those of you who've got no idea who I am, I know all this because I worked, I was a governor in a primary school, and I have spent 10 years working with parents. I mean, I work with adults who've got mental health complications, but also working with parents whose children have got mental health complications. And I can tell you the reason why those children have got mental health complications is because shit's been happening to them in the school system. And I usually end up having to go toe to toe with the local authorities. So I know how they fucking work at hiding stuff, and covering each other's backs, right? So this is going to stop them being able to cover each other's back. There's going to be easy evidence chain, right? But also remember, anybody who's patriotic is a domestic terrorist. So I wonder how many of us end up on this list, right? So police information systems should be upgraded. These systems should also provide for the use of unique reference numbers for children who are being introduced by the Department for Education. So basically, so this is the other thing schools do, right? Is schools will not report stuff to the police. So a child can be raped by another child on school grounds and they will not disclose it to the police, right? They will say that they're dealing with it in-house. Schools do not have the statutory authority to investigate a indictable offence and not report it. So they actually have a statutory duty to report it to the police because it's a crime, and by not reporting, they're covering it up. But you will be surprised how much abuse and horrific stuff happens on school grounds and it doesn't get reported. So one of my past children that I've worked with, a young girl was raped on school grounds, and the parent was pushing the school to kind of deal with it, and was pushing and asking for the police. And every time she said, I'm going to go to the police, the school said, we're dealing with it, we've already done it. And I literally said to her, you need to make your own, you need to go yourself. Funnily enough, the school hadn't reported it, right? And what was happening was the local authority was threatening to take the mum. This is how sick and twisted our fucking system is. So the young girl was raped. She was 15. She was raped by a 15-year-old boy in the girls' toilets. And the girl was then refusing to go to school. This is how I got involved. The girl had anxiety. Oh, well, I was surprised she had fucking anxiety. She was refusing to go to school because the school hadn't even suspended the boy, right? They hadn't suspended the boy because if they suspend or exclude the boy, they have to say why they're doing it, right? So the boy was still allowed to be on school grounds. And so the girl was refusing to go to school, right? Because she was having to go to school with the fucking rapist, and the school were doing nothing, pretending it didn't happen. And actually the girl was getting, because the guy was a popular boy and she was an outsider. So the whole popular gang was saying that she was making it up and it wasn't true, right? This girl had been brutalized. The mum, took her to, so there was medical evidence that it had happened, right? She didn't just trip over and all this shit happened to her. Like there was a chain of custody of evidence because the parents were not stupid parents. And so I told the parent to go to the police, right? But the school had got onto the local authority with regards to the child being truant, and the local authority were threatening if they'd go outside. Like, this is the nicely worded threat. If you go to the police, we will take you to court and imprison you and fine you for your child being truant. We are going to let you off right now with your child not coming to school while we investigate this thing, right? So this is how they were fucking psychologically abusing the parents. And so this is why the mum was like, I can't go to the police because if I go to the police, they're going to put me in prison because my child's not been in school. And I was just like, yeah, let's just see how that fucking goes down, right? Suffice to say, the police got involved and the boy was excluded. And the police actually did a very good job of kind of dealing with that, all of that, right? But the head teacher's still in place. The deputy head teacher, like none of the teachers got arrested. Nobody at social services, and the local authority have been investigated for their blackmail attempts, because that shit doesn't happen, right? However, so now this is going to stop. It's going to reduce that kind of shit happening. Whether it's from inside school, whether it's, children being truant, because, and so this is the other thing, is sometimes parents don't know their children are truant. And if the school aren't reporting it because they don't want to deal with it, then there's no way the parent's going to know. So child sexual exploitation. Okay, so this is the ID number. Recommendation number 8. And she's just, this is interesting. You don't need a new IT system for it. It can be done quickly and incrementally, right? So they can't, she's actually really covering a lot of the bases. You can't slow walk this because you want different ID numbers. You can't slow walk this because you need to get consent. You can't slow walk this because you think you need an entire new IT system. Like, so she is like proper battering down the hatches. Recommendation number 8, child sexual exploitation investigation should be approached like serious and organized crime. So this is saying that they're going to have to start using the trafficking laws, not rape laws, right? And that's where Chalice was fucked from the inside. Keir Starmer, right? Because they were using the trafficking laws. They were using it like serious organized crime. They had 200 plus people identified as perpetrators, and they were identifying people who were they being trafficked to. And then they had 7 people in court, right? So they have to use major investigations based on organized crime rather than on individualistic rape investigations. So there's a police reform white paper. This is why it's being coordinated through the NCA, and this will ensure strong national standards around the policing of child sexual that says sexual education. Police reform white paper. But I don't know whether that's supposed to be exploitation or whether that. Forthcoming police reform might be an opportunity to ensure there are strong national standards around the policing. I think that's supposed to be exploitation. So basically, but different police forces can't have different rules, right? Which happens, especially if your police force are the ones who were involved in it. And remember, in Rotherham, they were being trafficked to the police, trafficked to, that witnesses have said that. So these and it was being reported in the newspapers, right? So whether you can find it nowadays, whether people are talking about it nowadays, but it was being reported back then. Recommendation number 9, the Department for Education should urgently interrogate child protection data to identify. I mean, we could do that for them, right? We could do that for them child protection data to identify the causes of the decline in child sexual abuse and exploitation representation in child need assessment data. Oh, that's interesting. So this is saying somebody needs to find out why they were no longer talking about child sexual exploitation and as part of child in need assessment data. So child in need comes under 2 different categories. So we've got child protection and child so there's another level. So child protection is like they are kind of looked after by the state. So you're no longer with your birth parents. Below that, the name escapes me. But actually you've got social services are involved. So they're still with the caregivers, whether that's, parents, foster, grandparents, so whoever the caregivers are, but they're just being kind of managed alongside with social services, or child protection means they're child in care. So what they're saying is, why the fuck did you stop talking about child exploitation in the needs assessments, considering we know children in care are explicitly targeted by these individuals, right? So that was the gene pool, right? The same as Savile and all the other disgusting individuals who've been like doing, child abuse rings. Children in care were the ones who were being targeted. So that's like decades and decades, like going back to the 60s and 70s, children who were being protected by the state were the easy target. So examine the reasons for variations across local authorities and review the effectiveness of serious incident notifications in relation to child sexual abuse and exploitation. So serious incident notifications. So basically, for quite some time now, so when was I a governor? I was the governor back in 2014. And when they created, or so when they changed the law with regards to needs assessments, they gave schools access to, well, they I don't know whether it was like access to, or they created this system where actually schools, social services and the police and any kind of statutory agency that needed it. So that includes the health service. So whenever there was like a child who was being protected, a child protection plan, or I can't think of the name. Whatever, so either of those two levels, if you've got a statemented child, and whether it's an ECH, educational healthcare plan, whether it is they are on the child protection register, whether they are the one before child protection, if there is multi-agency looking after them, they all had access to this system. So basically, if the police were called out to, and this happened, where I was a governor, it's in one of the 10% most deprived areas in the country. It's in Woodside in Telford, and if the police went to a house the night before, maybe there was domestic violence happened, and the child was in that school, the teachers, the head teacher and the safeguarding team would kind of go in the morning, and they would get notified about the police being sent to XYZ's house, and they'd see the incident report, right? So this was really important for this to happen, because then they gave the safeguarding team in the school an opportunity to kind of grab the child straight away, and check that they were okay, maybe take them out of the classroom should they need to be taken out of the classroom. Sometimes some of the things that we would have happen is we would make sure that there was breakfast for them, we'd make sure there was like set of clean clothes for them. When we have this PPE funding, it would be used in the school to buy like coats, to make sure there was food for these children, but also to put them in a safe environment, so at least they were safe for those hours they were in school. So that was a really huge thing, right? And schools could feed into that. So technically, for the last 11 years, there is no reason why there should have been a decline in this information being used in the assessment data, right? So pre then, schools, so everyone had to kind of do the whole consent dance, right? And they didn't necessarily have ready access to all of this data. But they've had access to it since 2014, but they haven't been using it. Well, they probably had access since before No, I'm pretty sure it came in while I was, or it only just come in. So, just bear with me on the dates, but they would definitely had it and it was in place when I was a governor. And so it depends whether you have a good school who was using it and using it in the ways to protect the child. And actually, that was a really good school, because it was a phenomenal school. The results of the kids were in the top 10%. And actually, the one year, they were in the top like 5% for results, right? So the kids the kids could barely talk or walk by because it's a hugely deprived area, right? So you have illiterate parents, you have illiterate children, but the things that they did in that school to educate those children was just off the charts and support those children, that they were routinely like at the top of the league tables, right? So it was, and I was there as well, so I helped. I helped. So they had a phenomenal head teacher who sadly left. She left around the same time I did, but I'm sure it's still doing lots of really good work. But if you want to know how these systems work, you go and work in them. Anyway, so they had access to that, and this school was using that information. So there's no reason why this should have declined at all. Right. So it's really interesting that she's noted that, and she's telling the Department of Education, you need to go to these fucking schools and say, why are you not reporting this information? Similarly, why aren't social services doing that? Why aren't the health service, noting these bits of information? Because you had access to it. So recommendation 10, that's what I was going to say. So what they started doing, right, so with the change in the legislation around 2014, is the legislation changed so that the institution that reports the need for this protection is the institution that's now responsible for the child, right? So what happened was social service wouldn't report it because they didn't want to be responsible. The health service didn't report it because they didn't want to be responsible. The police didn't report it because they didn't want to be responsible. And the schools didn't report it because they didn't want to be responsible. And this is where, and I saw that a lot with the people that I was working with, how that they were struggling to get anybody to report it. And I kept saying to them, that's because they're then responsible, right? This is why the school, I talked about that rape case a minute ago, the school wouldn't report it because if they report it, they're responsible for it. And obviously it gets reported to Ofsted and it gets reported, in the papers, and so it's more, but they don't want responsibility. Right? I don't want to be responsible for that child. It's a social services matter. Social service, I don't want to be responsible for that child. It's an education matter. It happened on school grounds. The school need to deal with it. The school go, we're dealing with it. It's not a police matter. Like, so they just fucking batten down the hatches, and then they refuse to report things because they didn't want to be responsible for it. Is what they will find out, right? Okay, recommendation number 10. The government should commission research into the drivers for group-based child sexploitation, including online offending, cultural factors, and the role of the group. So she's explicitly asking them to look into group dynamics. So this reiterates the numerous calls that have been made for further research to be undertaken to examine potential cultural drivers for offending, to address a long-standing gap in the response to group-based child sexual exploitation, and to ensure the response evolves with newly emerging methods of offending. Now, in order for them to do this, they need to start talking to members of the military who were over in places like Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, right? Because then they understand the culture. I remember listening to a podcast and they were talking about Man Love Thursday, right? So just specifically talking about with regards to Muslim culture, there's something along the lines of you can only have sex with your wife if you are for procreation, right? So you can only have sex with your wife if you are trying to have a baby. Other than that, her body is a temple and you must not go near her, right? So all these men who need to have sex need to go elsewhere. So this is why they have lots of little boys so they trade in little boys in lots of Muslim countries, and not just little boys, but also animals. And I cannot believe still that Amazon played bestiality. Like, this is like, I do not understand how Top Gear or whatever it was called when it was on Amazon, when they literally showed you a man raping a donkey. Like, that's bestiality. That is unlawful. That is a crime. Maybe I should be asking for Amazon to be prosecuted. That's category A, right? That's category A. I did not want to be watching a man raping a donkey, right? If they spotted it, they could have mentioned it. They didn't have to record it and then fucking stream it, right? But maybe I do need to. Okay, so anyway, that's a crime in the UK. But anyway, it's not a crime in other countries. And didn't Obama try and make it not a crime? And aren't they trying to decriminalize bestiality in the UK? I mean, David Cameron, what did he do? He shagged was it a pig's head? I mean, I don't know whether that counts because it was a dead pig. Anyway, so they want to say, so I would say you got to speak to the military, right? Because they can tell you all about the culture and how they treat individuals. So obviously when you come to the UK, you don't have to rape other little boys. You can rape little girls instead. You can't rape your wife. I mean, they probably do because women are property. But you're not supposed to. And why would you when you can have your pick, right? Recommend it's access, right? Recommendation 11: the Department for Transport should take immediate action to put a stop to out-of-area taxis and bring in more rigorous statutory standards for local authority licensing and regulation of taxi drivers. So this has been a repeated thing with regards to every single investigation into just rape and pillaging of little girls, and not even just little girls. They say the Labour was she an MP or just a councillor who was vilified for saying there needs to be mandatory CCTV in cabs. She was called a racist, right? So even now, even though it's been identified, it was identified in the Rotherham. Was it Rotherham or Rochdale? In the J report that it was taxis, right? And taxis, if you're not aware, it's the local authority who issues the licenses, right, to taxis. And so people who look the same will use the same ID, and you can be picked. So like one person will get a driver's license, and then multiple people will use that driver's license, right? So the local taxi firm around here, it has changed its name. I noticed it's changed its name again recently. So it's and children in care, FYI, they usually get taxied to and from school. They get taxied everywhere, right? So it's very easy for them to be taxied to not very nice places. Like they are because they don't have a parent or a guardian to take them to places, and if they they can't get on a bus depending on where they are and they need to get to school, so the local authority has huge contracts with these taxi firms, particularly for the looked after children. Is it called looked after children now? Yeah, I think it's called looked after children. So the local authority are the ones who do the licenses. They're also the ones who have huge contracts with these for the children who are in care, who are being fucking trafficked. So you tell me how there isn't a fucking shitload of loopholes in just that teeny tiny sentence I've given you. Recommendation 12: the government should commit to fully resourcing the implementation of these recommendations over multiple years and to tracking the implementation across departments and other organisations with regular reports to Parliament. So this is not to be, oh, we need to learn those lessons and it disappears. She is stating this needs to be non-stop, ongoing, and keep updating. So this is not allowed to disappear out of public view. Full and swift implementation. Okay. So 12 really good recommendations. Let's just see how I really like the fact that she has considered all the things that they would do and are doing to slow walk stuff. I could do with this being audibled because then I might be able to actually get an opportunity to go through it, because like I say, it is 197 pages. I've read the J report. I read those, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I still got them. I printed them out. Oh, okay. And she's got a giant reference list. Oh, this is a huge giant reference list. Oh, she's got Bernardo's report there. I wonder whether she's got the original. Oh no, 2021. I'm gonna have to look through the 2011. She hasn't got the 2001 one. 111111. She got any of the originals? I think they were scrubbed, didn't they? But that journalist on the Groom documentary, she had the originals. Right, I'm going to go through this. So that's what you also need to do. Go through the references and see where they pulled their information from. It's a pretty chunky list. Okay, so last thing. Oh, music is magic. So really quick, short one, because I knew that would probably take a while to kind of deal with. Yeah, I haven't missed anything this week. Sometimes I forget and I miss stuff. So basically, music is magic, and that's it. No. So I was redoing. So you know, so I'm still kind of doing all the videos for the Happiness Hacks Vault, and I have been doing teeny tiny little shorts that I've been posting everywhere, and I am quite impressed with myself because I'm day 11, 12. Day 13, unlucky for some, day 13 shorts every single day. And yesterday I did one about music, and I'm quite disappointed. It's only had like 61 views on YouTube. So the one I did the day before had like 2,500. So the reason why I'm quite disappointed is because it's a really easy way people can like heal. So basically, Mozart, let me just open it up. Let me turn it off because I don't want me talking. I can read it off you. Oh, maybe I can share the screen. I kind of half worked out how to do that now. But you don't need to hear it. So let's just stop. And then I can talk about it, and then we can all go to sleep. No, I need to eat first. And then go to sleep. There we go. Yeah, okay, you can see it. Now I've lost it. Oh, there we go. It's like 30 seconds. Oh, it's not. It's like 6 seconds. Okay, so listening to Mozart's K448 Sonata daily has been scientifically proven to reduce epileptic seizures in both adults and children, also reverses Alzheimer's and increases IQ. Okay, so it's not just Mozart, which is magical. However, his music it has been proven to do so. I don't want to just keep repeating. Let's stop sharing because that's quite stressful. When you listen to multiple notes at the same time, your ears will pick up different notes, and what happens is your brain waves will. So if you want to kind of dig around in the CIA files, use the terminology frequency following or following frequency, as well as entrainment. So Monroe Institution got involved and they called it entrainment, right? So this is where binaural beats comes from. The fact that you have one playing in right, one playing in left, and it's the space between which kind of entrains. So Mozart and Beethoven's music was doing similar sorts of things. So you've got lots of different things going on at the same time, and then your brain waves entrain to a specific frequency. With Mozart's music, it entrains to 40 hertz. 40 hertz is also your genius frequency. So you can use it to that's why you can use it to increase your IQ, right? So it entrains it to gamma frequency, and that is like, so if you're in the flow state, that's that frequency. But what's really exciting is it has been proven to sorry, can you still hear me? I don't know. You can stops epileptic seizure. So you just need to listen to it like once a day, right? Listen to it once a day. So while you're studying or learning stuff, have it playing in the background. You don't need to have it like blaring. It's not like a rock concert. It also reverses cognitive decline. So specifically with regards to Alzheimer's. So if you have elderly relatives who are starting to feel the effects of the jabs, thanks to, so they were way ahead of the game. They're going to give you these Rona jabs, and then they've already got the COVID jab, they've already got the Alzheimer's jab, and they've already got the HIV jab ready to go. But if you've got somebody who's starting to feel the effects of cognitive decline, you need to make sure you're playing Mozart's K for, what did I say it was? Oh, darn it. You tell I'm tired now. K, oh, come on. 443, did I say? No. K448. Sinatra. So classical music is nice, and actually if you play classical music near your plants as well, you get like extra, they benefit, because it's just frequency, it's just energy, it's just radio waves is energy, sound energy, so it increases it changes the way that the atoms are fizzing, it changes the way that your cells are being replicated, it's like blah 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 blah, all of that kind of information. So if you are struggling to remember stuff, or you are struggling with I don't know whether epilepsy is increased thanks to, I haven't heard anything about epilepsy increasing. It'll depend on what type of epilepsy you have as well, by the way. But feel free to go on to PubMed and search for information on Mozart and childhood epilepsy, but it's also adult epilepsy nowadays. I did put a reference there, actually. Oh, I've closed it again. Sorry, it's too late now. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock, so it's definitely time for me to have my dinner. Have yourselves. I hope this has been helpful, kind of going through the Baroness Casey report, and so make sure if you're interested, make sure you catch the. Don't watch it. I mean, feel free to have it on in the background, but I wouldn't kind of watch it for any kind of exciting revelations. However, it will be interesting to find out who is saying no to it. And just as a quick side before we go, Telford's MP abstained from voting. So he said no. Well, he didn't say no, he said no by omission, but he's very happy dressing up in his army gear. I say his army gear, it's not his at all whatsoever. He's a career politician, dressing up in some fancy dress, army clothing, and having photos taken in other countries, right? So he's doing, I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but Telford's MP abstained from voting whether they need an inquiry, but that's because he obviously blocked Telford from being part of the other one, right? So he's not going to kind of want it happening. But all I'm going to say is, kind of like, what is it? 1-2 Freddy's coming for you. But how about 1-2 NCA's coming for you, Telford? And the rest of you. So on that lovely little threatening note there by an agency, a police, a law enforcement agency, not by me, have yourselves a wonderful week. And hopefully, Trump is able to put his foot down, and the Iran-Israel stuff, Gaza, Ukraine, all of this shit starts to really sort yourselves out. But I do believe we've got another 2 weeks of shit getting worse. So pray for love, pray for peace, pray for joy, and it literally feeds into the Schumann resonance, literally alters how the people are behaving. If you want to stop civil war, that's how you can do it without putting your head above the parapet. So have an amazing day, and I shall see you next week. And thank you to everybody who's joined live and dropped comments. Love you all, and see you soon. Bye for now.